We exist in an era of manufactured consent, a psychological cage gilded with the illusion of connection and freedom. Look closer. This is not an age of lost souls, but an age of willing slaves. You see them, the perpetual producers, the responders, the smiling, punctual avatars. Their internal silence is not a scream of profound anguish, but the hum of a well-oiled machine, empty and content with its programming. This emptiness you feel, this persistent unease, is not a failure of your spirit. It is the last, dying pulse of your lucidity before the collective sedation takes hold. The masses call this malaise a crisis of meaning, a lamentable side effect of too many options. This is a delusion. They do not suffer from too much freedom. They suffer from the paralysis of choice because they lack an internal sovereignty. They are children given the keys to an infinite city, and they can only stand still, crying for a single, designated path. Their fatigue is not physical. It is the weariness of performing a life that is not their own, a constant, exhausting charade dictated by algorithms, peer validation, and the tyrannical metrics of success and happiness. You must understand this first principle. The world does not reward goodness, it rewards precision. The modern man is not lost because of external catastrophes. He is lost because he has built his entire psychological architecture on false foundations: sentimentality, external approval, and the lie of inevitable progress. When the external scaffolding of ideology, religion, or community dissolved, what the sociologist Bauman termed liquid modernity, the mass man did not build his own internal fortress. He dissolved, too, turning his freedom into a terrifying sentence of continuous self-exploration without a map, a compass, or a spine. This is where the cold genius emerges, the untouchable man. He is not a sociopath, but a dark empath. He is an architect of reality who sees the structure of the cage and refuses the comforts it offers. He understands that the universe is not cruel. It is indifferent. It offers no guarantees, no moral justification, and certainly no easy answers. This indifference is the bedrock of his power. While the majority seeks a comforting, prefabricated meaning to justify their weakness, the genius accepts the fundamental absurdity of existence, not as a cause for despair, but as a license for self-creation. As Nietzsche would articulate, the breakdown of old values is not a collapse, but an opportunity to become a law unto oneself. The 20th century saw the collapse of grand narratives in the face of atomic bombs and the trenches of war. Camus was right to pose the question of survival. But today's collapse is not one of visible ruins. It is an invisible, psychological erosion. It is the surrender to the banality of constant distraction. The old nihilism was a defiant shriek. The new nihilism is a generalized apathy, a mute acceptance of being an interchangeable cog. The employee who fulfills his shift without knowing why, the student who sees the instability of the future and asks what is the point, the youth who possesses everything and feels lacking in essence. This is the language of the modern absurd. It resides not in the face of tragedy, but in the infinite scroll, the toxic productivity that fills the void without feeding the soul, and the exhausted look behind the over-perfect social media performance. The world is a stage, and you are either the director or an extra in someone else's script. The most dangerous war you face is not fought with armies, but with the constant hijack of your attention. The enemy is the system that monetizes your time, your anxiety, and your need for meaning. It does not want you awake, it wants you entertained. The digital architecture is not designed for connection. It is designed for performance and fragmentation. Your life becomes a showcase, where external validation is the only currency. Your identity disappears into the role you play for the audience. Intimacy becomes a vulnerability, and depth is sacrificed for the addictive superficiality of the instant. The system requires you to be disconnected from your body, your stillness, and your authentic will. Why? Because consciousness is a revolutionary act. As long as you are distracted, you cannot feel the weight of your own chain. You cannot hear the voice of your true will. The path to the untouchable man begins with the radical reclamation of presence. It is the choice to inhabit your existence fully, even the parts that hurt, even the moments that are silent. You must cease to be the passive spectator of your own life and become the active, unflinching sentinel. Without presence, there is no revolt. Without revolt, there is only surrender. This brings us to the core dilemma, the point of no return. In the face of the absurd, there is only despair or a specific, cold-blooded revolt. The majority choose despair, a silent resignation, a mechanical continuance of function without the vital spark. It is the man who still breathes, who still meets deadlines, but who has internally collapsed, having abandoned the will to live in favor of mere survival. He renounces the desire to understand, to feel, to create, content with the comfort of a lie. The cold genius chooses the other path, revolt. But this is not the adolescent rebellion of noise and destruction. The Camusian revolt, as filtered through the lens of Nietzschean will to power, is intimate, silent, and profoundly sovereign. It is the affirmation of life, finite, uncertain, and purposeless though it may be, as a defiant act of self-legislation. It is saying yes to existence, not despite the lack of objective meaning, but precisely because of it. If the universe does not provide meaning, then the meaning you create in this moment, through your awareness and your will, is the only true currency you possess. This is the tragic beauty of ruthlessness. It is the courage to live without a crutch. The rebel, the untouchable man, is one who rejects the pre-packaged systems of salvation and meaning, choosing to stand firm in the void. He creates, he loves, he acts, not out of a belief in a guaranteed, blissful tomorrow, but because he recognizes the irreplaceable, momentary value of the now. Revolt is the commitment to live with an uncompromising intensity and to refuse the sweet anesthetic of illusion. This perspective is a powerful inversion. If the world is indifferent, then everything that is real, felt, and lived acquires an even more savage and precious value. The silence between two heartbeats, the perfect geometric shadow of a tower, the sheer, visceral force of an authentic emotion, these gain a nearly sacred importance, not because they carry a transcendent purpose, but because they are the tangible remnants of reality in a world of simulation. The cold genius is not a pessimist. He is a radical humanist who trusts only the human capacity to inject value where none is given. He says, "I know the universe is indifferent, but I am not. And my non-indifference is my ultimate, non-negotiable power." This leads to the practical form of resistance. Slow down. This is a heresy in a society that worships speed, efficiency, and the constant optimization of the self into a function. Time is not to be lived. It is to be managed, fragmented, and monetized. But to slow down is the most subversive act of self-reclamation. It is the silent, Camusian revolt realized through deliberate presence. The dark empath understands that speed is a mechanism for depersonalization. It transforms the I into a functional operator, a blur spinning in the gears of a machine that demands efficiency but delivers no essence. To slow down is to reclaim the dignity of experience. It is to say no to the transformation of the self into a machine. It is to claim the right to feel the organic, animal time of things. When you permit the silence, you allow for boredom, and in boredom, the mind, stripped of its digital pacifiers, is forced to confront its own depths. Why is this so difficult? Because we have been conditioned to believe that value lies in production, not in being. This belief system is an act of daily self-violence. But the act of slowing down, of being truly present, is the creation of a gap in the unbroken flow of alienation. It changes your relationship to time, to others, and to the very meaning of your existence. You stop being a resource to be exploited, and you become a conscious entity. And in that space of conscious slowness, beauty reveals itself as the ultimate act of defiance. Not an ideal, rhetorical beauty, but the concrete, tangible beauty of a moment fully lived, a creation made by hand, a sincere, unrecorded presence. The final key to the architecture of the cold genius is acceptance without resignation. The mass man spends his life escaping the absurd, seeking formulas, absolute answers, and external saviors. The illusion of control is his existential prison. The genius takes the opposite path. He walks into the center of the anguish. By abandoning the need to justify existence with grand, external narratives, he achieves true freedom. He frees himself from the obligation to get somewhere, and begins, finally, to live. This freedom is not libertinism. It is radical responsibility. If there is no given meaning, then you must construct your own, not as a comforting lie, but as a conscious choice to live in fidelity to your own experience. This is the full revolt, the lucid human being who recognizes the void but refuses to be swallowed by it. The paradox is complete. It is precisely when you abandon the search for a great, external purpose that you open yourself to the power of the moment. When you stop demanding that life reward you, you begin to receive the one, raw gift it has always offered: the chance to be here. Truly, if you feel this emptiness, this confusion, this loss of direction, understand this: you are not a failure. You are not broken. You are simply awake, and awakening always hurts. You are in touch with a truth that the anesthetized masses avoid. You are perceiving the structure of the cage. This is not the end of the road. It is the critical inflection point. You have looked at the void without blinking, and you have found there the silent form of power, the beauty of being alive, even without knowing why. The true power does not lie in a title or a bank account. It lies in the sovereign consciousness, the decision to create meaning moment by moment, not as one who awaits a revelation, but as one who decides that being here is already enough. In this silent gap, in this small, brutal space of the absurd, you find your spine, your architecture, and your ultimate, untouchable power. Ask yourself, are you willing to trade the comfort of the lie for the sovereignty of the truth?